one of the issues. I don't know why it should matter. People go to other countries all the time.
Right,
And it's not illegal to go to Columbia. And you shouldn't matter who pays for a trip to Columbia. In my case, as I think in most people's cases, I paid for a portion of my trip, and then I did fundraising in the peace movement, which is very concerned with places where the U.S. has funded war. And the peace movement has an interest in supporting and understanding the real consequences of U.S. military aid to places like Colombia. So when I went there, I paid for part of my trip and had public fundraisers. Wasn't a secret. I didn't think it needed to be, because I thought it was legal for American citizens to visit other countries and to understand for ourselves what the effects of our government's policies were. That's what I was doing.
Well, are you aware of anybody taking any money from these organizations that are cited in the search warrant documents?
No, I'm not aware of anyone taking any money from any of those organizations.
And would anyone have taken any money from them?
No, not that I could think of. Nothing that I can't even imagine it, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Can't imagine circumstances under which they would have offered it or someone here would have accepted it. I think we're all aware of our government's views on these groups, and so people certainly wouldn't be getting involved in that kind of level with them.
Can you specify what was said in the search warrant documents specifically?
They wanted, well, as I said, they wanted evidence of material support for foreign terrorist organizations. They specifically listed the FARC, which is in Colombia, and they listed the PFLP, which is in Palestine.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if they listed other organizations and other people's search warrants. That was listed on mine.
Was the language in the search warrants pretty similar from in all
a couple
6
of us
the
compared
cases?
them, but not all. We haven't seen all. I haven't put them all side by side. But I suspect the two that I put somebody's right next to mine, and they were almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
So I expect they were mostly the same, but I don't know for sure.
Were you shown any type of probable cause affidavit or anything?
No probable cause, no charges against me. I don't have any indication that I'm a target of the grand jury trial or the grand jury here. I don't even know what it's called, the grand jury.
Have you been subpoenaed for that?
I have.
And what's the date? That's October, right?
Mine is October 12th. Some people received subpoenas for other dates. All of us in Chicago.
What time were the raids this morning? Did they all happen at exactly the same time?
Mine was at 7, and I think they were all at least, within a very short order of each other.
Did you have any warning this was coming?
No.
Nothing.
Nor can I think of any reason why it happened now. I haven't been anywhere lately. Not planning to go anywhere anytime soon.
There were raids too in Chicago, is that right? And other
Yes.
states? Can you talk about that?
Well, before the press conference, the raid that I knew about in Chicago was still underway. I know other activists in other cities were visited. Some delivered subpoenas. I don't know if people were questioned or if there were raids. But several other cities, and we're still getting information about where.
Do we know what organizations those were, and were the people who were also concerned with Colombia and Palestine?
Well, all the groups that I know about are folks who participated in our demonstrations here against the RNC. That's the one thing that kind of links us all. We were all here marching against the war in 2008, and that's a lot of the groups. That's how we found each other, got to know each other. Certainly we're all people that are concerned with, I think they're all like anti-war groups,
Yeah.
that like the anti-war committee has taken an interest in other places where the U.S. funds war and repression.
I mean, other than the raid or raids in Chicago, what other raids were there today that you know of that we can
I understand that some activists were visited, but I don't know if they were raided in Michigan and North Carolina.
Do we know where in Michigan or North Carolina?
I don't know the name of the town in Michigan.
Okay.
North Carolina would have been Durham, I think. The triangle, at least, like end of that for
Yeah.
sure. And then I think somewhere in California, but I'm not sure about that either. I don't have a computer, so I can't check my email.
Are they people you know?
There are people, as I said, there are people who helped us with the March on the RNC in 2008. All the people that I've heard of anyway are people that were involved with that.
Any guess?
Describe-
Go ahead.
Describe the raid this morning. They knock on the door, then
I was still in bed. My partner and my daughter were awake. I heard the bangs at the door. Loud voices came in. There were 6 or more FBI agents in the house by the time I got downstairs.
And they were dressed how?
Business casual. They weren't wearing any identifying jackets. They weren't wearing suits. Sort of business casual. No, or not particularly. Some of them were in fleece because it was kind of chilly.
Okay. And what did they say?
They didn't say much, and we didn't really volunteer much because we didn't want to talk to anyone without our attorneys present. It gave us the search warrant and then the subpoenas. And other than that, they just told us not to make any phone calls, but said that we weren't under arrest or detained and that we were free to go if we wanted to leave.
But could you come back if you left?
No, we didn't leave. We chose to stay around the house.
And what all did they take?
Well, many crates full of papers, photographs, computers, CDs, my passport. I lose track.
Computer?
Yeah, they got a couple of laptops. My cell phone. It's like my right hand was taken off. So yeah.
And what did they tell you about it?
That they gave me a phone number at the FBI that me or my lawyer could call to find out what happened to things and when I might be able to get them back. But
And did they give you any contact in the U.S. Attorney's office? And how long were they there?
3 or 4 hours. Probably closer to 4. It's good to see you. You too.
And what did they say when they were done?
Here's your receipt. They asked me to sign it. I didn't because I wasn't able to see everything that they took. There was so many cratefuls. So they wrote that I refused to sign it. But other than that, that was it.
Any guess as to whether this might have something to do with preparations for a possible 2012 Democratic convention here?
I doubt it, but I know that all the groups that helped organize the marches at the RNC here were very invested in speaking to whichever political party has its conventions here about the policies of our government. But I don't think that would be. I would be surprised, I guess, if that was the reason.
Had you ever been searched before?
No.
I am just coming in a little late here,
Sure,
so I'm
jump
going to ask
in.
you some of these questions. I guess kind of, what were you doing, and kind of what was your reaction when they broke in this morning?
I was asleep when they arrived. I heard the bangs at the door.
One or the other.
I'm in newspapers and such all the time. Why not hit some of the others?
Oh, we did actually talk to Jess earlier today.
All right.
I guess I just want to ask, how did it start? Just kind of describe to me when this started and what went on.
Well, what happened was that the FBI raided my home at about 7 o'clock this morning, and they broke down a door, smashed a fish tank, and went through my books and papers.
Sure.
And the reason that we're being targeted is because we've been speaking out against U.S. foreign policy. I've been extremely visible in the community, the peace community, over the years, for 40 years,
Sure.
actually. And I've appeared in the Daily a few times, too. So,
Did they take anything?
yes, they took books and papers,
Okay.
computers,
They took computers?
yeah.
Okay. Did you talk to them? Did they communicate with you at all, or did they just hand you a search warrant? And
Well, yeah, we certainly communicated, but it was at a low level. Let's
Sure.
just leave it like that. you know.
sure. Was there anything at the sort of back end of it where they said what the follow-up to something like this is, or what it meant for you?
No, not really.
Okay.
I guess we're going to see.
Sure. How long were they there?
4 hours.
4 hours. Okay. And just books and papers that they took, and a fish tank was broken.
That's correct.
Did you get an apology for that?
Of course not.
Is this? I mean, I guess obviously we have You have appeared in the Daily once or twice before. Is this something that you've been sort of involved in protest and had a run-in or two with the police, but have you ever had anything to this sort of level?
Nothing like this has ever happened to me.
Sure.
But again, there sometimes can be a price if you want to speak out for what's good and for what is just, and I've always found it necessary to do so. And looking back, there's actually nothing that I would do differently.
Sure. And
All
probably
right.
nothing that's going to change?
No, nothing that's going to change.
Sure.
All right, Mike?
All right.
All
Thank
right,
you.
good.
Did they ask you to sign anything? I was hearing over here that she was asked to sign a receipt when they left.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm on film here.
Sure, yeah.
I don't want to be smoking when I'm...
What's the best way to reach your cell phone?
They seized my phone. There isn't a good way to reach me. I don't have a phone.
Number?
That was my home phone number. Was my
Wow.
cell phone.
Okay. Do you have an email address? Or
They seized my email. It was on the warrant. You could get Steph York's phone number. Her phone has been sort of the one that we've been using. And Steph York, Jess in the red coat, she would know Steph's number.
And tell me again, Meredith, what they took.
They took both my computers, they took my cell phone, and they took all evidence of any political, anything, like flyers, notes from meetings, they took anything that related to any political work that I've ever done.
Were they saying it? Did they say anything to you as they were going through all this stuff?
No. Except for the fact they showed me a warrant and told me that they're subpoenaing me to testify in Chicago.
On what date?
October 5th.
Can you? Is it okay if I jump in?
Yeah.
There were 2 raids in Chicago today, as I understand, and I've heard Michigan and North Carolina as well.
I think Michigan and North Carolina, the FBI just stopped and gave subpoenas. I don't believe that I don't believe they raided people's homes in Michigan and North Carolina, but I could be wrong. I mean, I'm pretty out of the loop in terms of news. I don't have an email account, a phone, or a computer, so...
How did they seize an email account? How does that work?
Well, I haven't gone to use it. It's on the warrant, that they're going to investigate everything that's on my email
I see.
account.
They're tapped into it.
So, and it was open on the computer that they took, so I'm pretty sure that it's not my email account anymore.
The fellow raids in Chicago, were these people that you knew?
Yeah, these are people who worked with me on leading the delegation in 2002, and that have led other delegations to Palestine since then.
Columbia as well?
No, the people in Chicago weren't doing political work around Palestine. I mean, around Columbia with me.
Do you have any contact information for them, your friends in Chicago?
You could ask Mick in the black bomber jacket and the black leather jacket. He might have a better idea. I mean, I don't have a phone. I don't have any way to give you anybody's information.
Okay.
Because I don't have any of it anymore.
Okay.
Sorry.
This is the.
Yep, that's our office.
Anti-work committee office. Okay. Thanks, Meredith.
MEREDITH, Abby, ABY.
You said there was a 1-year-old.
1.5-year-old, yeah.
And then college music. Is that your kid there?
Yeah.
Is that your mom?
No, it's my partner.
Okay, what's her name?
Anne.
Annie.
Kierstead.
Meredith, where is your home? The address for the raid?
I'm at 31st in Bloomington.
And I'm sorry, I jumped in a little late. Can you narrate the morning how this happened for you?
At 7 in the morning, the FBI and the Minneapolis police showed up. They had a warrant. They entered my house. They went through, my whole house, the garage, the basement, and looked through everything. They took, boxes of political materials. They took both my computers. They took my cell phone. And they took evidence of political work that I do, and they're specifically looking for information related to the Anti-War Committee. And on the warrant, it says that they're looking for information about how I indoctrinate people into joining the Anti-War Committee. I mean, I really feel like this is a investigation that is targeted against people who dare to question U.S. foreign policy, and I think that's outrageous.
what rights did they tell you had or didn't have during the?
Oh, there was no
ransack?
discussion of rights.
Were you said that you could? Did they tell you you could stay, or were you?
They
forced to go?
at first told me that I could stay in the house, but when I left the house, when we had supporters that came, they wouldn't let me back in the house. But originally I was told I could stay in my house. Well, they did the search, and then I wasn't allowed back in.
And then when did they finally leave?
They were there from 7 in the morning until around noon.
So it sounds like all the raids started at 7. Totally
Yes,
confirmed.
yeah, they were synchronized to start at 7.
Were there any hints this was coming? Total surprise.
No, I really had no idea.
Anything like this before?
To the anti-war committee,
Yeah.
we have faced increasing harassment from the Department of Homeland Security when we've tried to come back from trips to other countries, but we've never been raided or, interrogated on this level, and we've certainly never been subpoenaed.
Which trips back from which countries in particular?
From Palestine and from Columbia.
The subpoenas are they all to appear in Chicago?
Yes, they're all to appear in Chicago.
But they're
Although
not the
everybody
same
else
date, are
is,
they?
everybody else is to appear on October 12th. I'm just a special one that's supposed to appear on October 5th.
And the others are October 6th, is that right?
No, October 11th
October 11th.
or 12th. But yeah, it's after mine.
Has there been any effort to, I know that cell phones are gone, computers are gone. The support group, has there been any efforts by the support group to reach out to those in Chicago?
Yeah, we've had communication with the folks in Chicago. It just hasn't been by me.
Right.
I'm not someone who's been in communication
Who
with
might
anyone.
I speak to about learning?
You could ask Mick. He might be able to answer this question
Okay.
better.
Thanks, Meredith.
You bet.
What's your boy's first name?
Hey, Mick, do you mind if I ask you on camera what we know about what happened in Chicago?
I don't know anything. I mean,
Okay.
I know the raids are still. And by taking it out of the realm of free speech, it means that anyone can now be investigated and arrested if they have contacts with organizations that the investigative authorities believe are somehow connected to an organization that the Secretary of State has put on the forbidden list. Organizations in Palestine, organizations in Kurdistan, organizations in parts of the world where the U.S. has a policy that may be opposed by people in this country, and it really exposes all of the political opposition in the United States to political attack, even though the local law enforcement officials may not intend that to be what they're doing. They may not understand that that is, in effect, the result of what they're doing, and they may be doing it honestly and innocently on a personal level, but the political effect of these kinds of things and these kinds of investigations is to attack political opposition. We saw, for example, just last week that the charges of conspiracy against the RNC 8 were dropped. A similar sort of thing is going on where people who are politically active are suspected of being some sort of a larger political enterprise. The Supreme Court, unfortunately, has given law enforcement a tool to use their powers in a way that, even not intended, have a political effect on political opposition. I think it's a huge mistake, both in terms of the use of police power, also in terms of having a robust political debate in the United States. I think we're all weakened for it. Thank you. Yeah, my pleasure.
All right.
I hope you can cut a usable
Yeah,
piece
yeah,
out of
no,
that.
I can. I know. I'm like, well, and I was even debating. I'm like, well, it's a complex thing, and I think it's really interesting. But I know getting at the bottom of it, I'm like, in a minute and a half, we're not going to be able to get to the heart of it.
Yeah.
But at least we can kind of.
Well, I'm hoping that I gave you enough pieces to do something useful, because this is a much bigger story than what's happening here
so,
today.
and what is the base? Is there an organization that's based in Chicago? What's the connection to Chicago?
I'm not sure what the connection is, but it doesn't matter what the connection is. It's what the FBI thinks the connection is.
But I just mean, if the grand jury is going to be down there and they're subpoenaed to go down to Chicago, there must be something that they're looking at down there.
Well, there must be. There must be, but what that is, it's not for me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know. That would be something that the FBI probably would know.
Yeah.
But if they think that this is an organization that is providing something like real material support for a foreign terrorist organization, they can't know very much.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Peter, I'm with the Uptake.
Yeah, I'm sorry I don't know what that is, but I'm happy to talk to you irrespective
Wonderful,
of whether I
wonderful.
know
or not.
Can I ask you to hold the mic first of all?
Sure.
Is that okay? Can I get your full name first of all?
Yeah, I'm Professor Peter Erlander, Director of the International Humanitarian Law Institute, and a professor at William Mitchell College of Law in St. Paul.
From your perspective, and can you tell us what happened today and what the government did today?
Well, they apparently have decided that the Anti-War Committee is suspected of providing material support for what's called a foreign terrorist organization. We don't know what organization. We don't know the reason why the government thinks there's this connection. But what we do know is that as of about 6 weeks ago, the U.S. Supreme Court decided that it's possible to be prosecuted for and to be held guilty for material support for terrorism without intending to support any criminal acts at all. The way an organization gets put on the foreign terrorist list is a purely political decision. The Secretary of State decides whether a foreign organization is supporting U.S. policy or not and engaging in violence or the threat of violence. If the organization is supporting U.S. policy and engaging in violence or the threat of violence, it can't be a foreign terrorist organization by definition. If it's opposing U.S. policy, it can be put on the list by the Secretary of State. So quite normally and naturally then, if a local organization is supporting an organization, philosophically at least, that's opposed to U.S. policy overseas, and the law enforcement in the United States believes there's some connection, it doesn't take much to impanel a grand jury, get a search warrant, and to make it impossible for that organization to function. The same sort of thing happened during the wars in Central America when CSPACE, for example, the Committee in Solidarity for the People in El Salvador, was attacked in a similar fashion. This is a new variation on a very old story.
You said 6 weeks ago the Supreme Court reached this decision. Might that give us a hint as to why the timing for this was this morning?
Well, yes. The case was called the Humanitarian Law Project case. It also provided the basis for the indictment of about a dozen Somalis about 3 weeks ago, two of whom were women from Rochester who, as part of their religious mission, collected old clothes to send to refugee camps in Somalia and Kenya. I had been consulting with those women for about a year and told them that by sending old clothes that the government could interpret that as material support for terrorism. They told me that that was part of their sagat because they didn't have money, so all they could do was collect old clothes and send them as part of their religious obligation. They're two of the people who were indicted. And because the Supreme Court has said that sending the old clothes doesn't require an intent to support criminal acts, they now are facing felony charges.
You mentioned Secretary of State. How high up could the order for today's raids have come?
I have no idea, and I wouldn't want to speculate on that. It is quite clear, though, that Minnesota has one of the largest infrastructures of terrorism investigations in the country that was set up some years ago to investigate the Somali terrorist rings that supposedly were among us. And a bureaucracy and infrastructure of that size, of course, needs things to do to continue to justify its continued existence and its continuing budget. So whether it occurred at the local level or some level up, I wouldn't know. But I do know that the decision by the U.S. Supreme Court in the Humanitarian Law Project case was a foundation that makes these kinds of investigations and searches will make them more common.
From a legal perspective, what is the defense that these activists who were raided today, both here and in Chicago, what's available to them?
Well, that's something that can only be determined once we know the facts upon which the charges are based. I've been active with the Anti-War Committee for years. Keith Ellison has spoken at a number of their events. So I think it's going to be necessary to find out why the government thinks that this group, domestic group in Minnesota, is somehow engaged in material support for terrorism. And until we know that, it's going to be impossible to even consider what a defense might be.
Legally speaking, could the government, could the FBI have misstepped today?
Well, we do know that when it came to the RNC 8, that the longer the prosecutions go on, the less serious the crimes become. And 4 of the charges were dismissed last week, as you know. It's very difficult for me to conceive that the Anti-War Committee in Minneapolis is a serious threat to national security, frankly.
Chicago, there were 2 raids there. I've heard they might still be going on as we speak. Was that done completely concurrently with this? And do we know?
In terms of what the federal authorities are doing to carry out their investigation based on what they think the threat is and the criminal activities are, I could only guess, and I wouldn't want to speculate.
Thank you. Tracy, tell us what happened this morning.
7 a.m. I was awoken to pounding on my door. I was not slated to wake up till 7:15. I went to the door, which it's an apartment complex that I live in, and they had somehow entered the apartment complex, were at the door of my apartment. I opened it and they handed me the search warrant and came in, told me that they had a search warrant and basically shoved it in my face and came in. I was wearing a bathrobe and was told I couldn't do anything but sit on my couch, that they were going to take, that I was not under arrest, that they were taking my computer, my phone, all electronic equipment, and anything related to the solidarity work that I have done with the people of Palestine in the Anti-War Committee. In 2004 is when I went to Palestine.
They being the FBI,
the
also
FBI,
local police?
It looked like it was FBI and ICE agents from the Homeland Security Department. Those were the 2 prominent badges that I saw.
How many?
Between 5 and 8. I'm a little, they were walking around to different pieces of my apartment and coming in and out. And so I'm not exactly sure how many. They didn't exactly hand me a list of who was in my apartment or raiding my house and my room. It was basically 2.5 hours that they were there. They went through all of my belongings, and I had to have an escort to the bathroom while they were there. They took pictures of all of my apartment and told me again that I wasn't under arrest, but in fact I was being investigated for my relationship to terrorist activities, with no explanation to what that means, and with no explanation to.
And to that charge, what do you?
I am absolutely innocent. I stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine, and I am proud. I believe that people have the right to justice and peace, and the people of Palestine do not have that currently. They are terrorized day in and day out by the Israeli government, who is funded primarily by the U.S. government.
What did they take? Ultimately, what did they take?
My computer, my cell phone, my paper, all types of notes and documents. They took a scarf that had a Palestinian flag. They took a poster that I had made during the RNC. They took pictures.
Passport?
I had lost my passport a while ago, so I'm sure they would have taken it if they had found it. And they took bank statements also. They told me that they were basically confiscating my email account, my Gmail account, and my Facebook account, and my bank account.
What does that mean, confiscating?
I am not exactly sure, and they wouldn't explain it to me.
Well, you could log in right now, couldn't you, if you wanted?
In theory, but why would I want to now? It's
right.
It's in the same way I don't feel safe in my home. I have no idea what they took or what they didn't took, to be exact. They gave me a general list. They didn't write down all of the notebooks that they took of mine. They didn't write down the pictures that they took of mine.
You don't feel safe in your home. Where will you go? Where will you go tonight? Where will you sleep?
My friends and family and the community are obviously supporting us, and I have plenty of places where people who also believe in justice for the peoples of the world will house me.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry about this day.
Yeah, thanks.